Hello, it's Stuart Crawford here again with yet another of my podcasts. On this occasion, we're going to be talking about Gaza and the conflict there, which started comparatively recently. And we'll split the podcast into two parts because there's quite a lot to say. So this is part one and will be followed in due course by part two. Hamas, the proscribed Palestinian terrorist organisation which has controlled Gaza since 2007, launched a well-organised and planned assault on Israel over last weekend, which has resulted in many, many casualties and still counting on both sides. In doing so, it has signed its own death warrant. The ferocious and indiscriminate nature of its attack into Israeli territory, in which civilians and festival goers have been mown down and taken hostage without mercy, has brought international condemnation, and rightly so. Only the deranged and deluded could countenance such an action, let alone support it. Hamas has sown the wind, but is now about to reap the whirlwind. Israel has declared war on it, quite understandably, and the Hamas planners and militants are now dead men walking. Israel's retaliation will be swift and terrible and will lead, eventually, to the elimination of Hamas and its allies. This may take some time, but I have no doubt that it will happen. The terrorists will make it as difficult as possible, of course, skulking in their tunnels and bravely hiding behind the innocents who inhabit Gaza. But they'll be hunted down. If they're lucky, they'll end up in prison. If not so lucky, then they'll end up somewhere else. I have little sympathy for such a barbaric and medieval organisation, and they're going to get what's coming to them. And good riddance to them when they're gone. We should take a moment, however, to consider the broader context here. The Hamas onslaught has implications for other confrontations across the globe. Locally, Israel has been quick to reinforce its border with Lebanon, where Iranian-backed Hezbollah has been a thorn in their side for many years. Hezbollah, another proscribed terrorist organisation, might seek to take advantage of Israel's new discomfort in Gaza and launch its own actions on the northern border. Or Israel might take advantage of its own re-energised military muscle and decide to deal with Hezbollah as part of a wider regional conflict. Time will tell. Israel's greatest ally is, of course, the USA, where there is a vociferous and powerful pro-Israel Jewish lobby. Although I think it unlikely that the US will become involved directly in Gaza, we should note that they have reinforced their military air assets in the region and are moving a carrier battle group closer in the eastern Mediterranean. The latter, however, has probably more to do with the potential evacuation of US citizens than any real intent of military intervention. What will be interesting to see, though, is whether the current conflagration will have any effect on support for Ukraine, and in particular American support. Although the USA had already committed to supplying additional arms to Israel, there is a sense that the American public is becoming weary of supporting yet more foreign wars. It may also distract the US from its current focus on the Taiwan-China confrontation in the Far East. Even the world's only true superpower has a limit to how far its resources can stretch, and its commitments globally are costing it many billions of dollars annually. With the presidential elections looming next year, it must be a concern whether the US can maintain all its military commitments for any length of time. And then there is Iran. The Iranian people have been ruled by a repressive Islamic theocracy since the overthrow of the last Shah in 1979. And the country is the declared enemy of the USA, to which it has long referred to as with the derogatory epithet of the Great Satan. And it's also an enemy of Israel, which it wishes to see totally destroyed. Iran and the USA are constantly at loggerheads over such matters as sea passage through the international waters of the Strait of Hormuz, where the gunboats of the Iranian Republican National Guard constantly play chicken with naval vessels of the US and its allies, which guard and escort civilian traffic. Iran has also funded and supported many organisations in the Middle East and elsewhere, and is generally regarded as a malign actor in the region. As I have said many times before, the US will have to confront and deal with Iran sooner or later, and although now is probably not the optimum time, the recent hijab protests in Tehran and elsewhere may indicate that the Iranian people would welcome a new secular government. So this too will have to be addressed in due course. The final question to be answered is whether the events in Gaza are likely to lead to a global conflict. I suspect not, because it is none of the potential adversaries' interests to allow it to become so, for the time being at least. What will happen in the short term? I expect Israel will crush Hamas without mercy and reoccupy Gaza, possibly temporarily. We will all watch with bated breath as events unfold over the next days and weeks.